Welcome to House Rule, a podcast about role playing. This is Ed, and I am joined with Rory, Ebo, and Jeff.
Hey.
How you guys doing?
Hello.
Good.
Great. Now that we're talking about Pathfinder Unchained.
Well, are we now?
Hey,
This is a book like most Pathfinder books lately that I had no idea that it was coming out until it was out.
like a Call Adventures.
Exactly. That was the other one I was thinking of. Like, where did this come from? Why have I not heard about it? Probably because I haven't been looking.
I did not miss the Vigilante playtest, though. I was all
I totally missed the Vigilante playtest. I was in the Occult Adventures playtest, but not the Vigilante one.
Well, one of the things about this book that bears mentioning, and I'm not meaning to be doom and gloom here, but I remember some of the crazy stuff we did with like skills and powers and second ed. And then there was always a book like this at the end of an edition cycle where they just kind of like throw it all out there and they're like, you know what, have fun with it, do what you want. And that's kind of the attitude I get from this book, although I hope Paizo is not getting to that point. I hope they're going to keep making stuff forever and ever. But
Now, if we're talking about D&D for this, would that be the complete scoundrel, or would that be dragon magic?
I think the book he's talking about is Unearthed Arcana, traditionally
Yeah.
in the D&D cycles.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of right away, where
all right.
instead of just giving you additional options, it gives you it gives you options to take away what's already there and start building from a more basic state. With at least third edition Unearthed Arcana, they had like stripped down classes, so you could play like bare bones character and sort of build it the way you wanted. They had like Gestalt classes, which were like,
Cheating.
I mean, they're obviously cheating, and even in a game where everybody's playing one, it more or less, in my opinion, ramps up what's bad about third edition faster.
It also had alternate rule systems like endurance and armor as damage reduction, alternate skill systems, different like spell points instead of Vancian magic. I mean, so
Sure.
it's a book of a whole bunch of alternate systems you could use.
And now, is that what Pathfinder Unchained is too? I haven't read as much of it as you all have.
it's I guess more like rules tweaks. I compare it a lot to, and now I can't remember what the book was called, but there was a White Wolf book they released where it was like this Armory Unchained or Armory 2 or something like that, where they had a bunch of
Okay.
combat hacks and alternate rules.
I think it was called Armory Reloaded, if I recall correctly,
Yes.
but I'm not 100%.
That is correct.
And they
They had
later had another book of alternate rules too. It
Called
reminds me of
Mirrors.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking you were talking about at first, but yeah, I mean, they're the same sort of thing. I guess the thing about Unchained that was kind of surprising and, in my opinion, refreshing, and I haven't, again, really read it in detail, was like retooling of existing classes. It feels like something that, outside of rare exceptions like we were talking about earlier, I always like kind of crave this, especially like in our third edition and 3.5 days. Like, you don't have to commit it to core, say this is the way the class works now, but I just wish that they were brave enough to sometimes say, maybe this isn't a good fit for rules or mechanics. Maybe something different would work better, and we're going to publish that.
Yeah.
But they never really were. They were always just like more and more entrenched. They would just add feats or prestige classes that were intended to basically get around issues that people had with existing classes and mechanics. But I really appreciated that at least they're going to say, like, if you don't like the way Barbarian plays, here's alternate rules for a Barbarian that you might like better.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that coming out of a book.
And with one exception, I think you can still play both. And I mean, your GM might allow you to play. I think it's Summoner is the one that's supposed to be a replacement.
Yep.
Yes. Summoner
Well,
is
how do they describe that in the book? Like, I guess I have not looked at Unchained Summoner at all.
In the book, it's basically alternate rules, but if you look at any other official, like we've been playing like Pathfinder Society and stuff, I think
Sure.
you have to play the Unchained Summoner. Is that right?
Pathfinder Society,
Yeah.
one of the reasons Unchained has been interesting with Pathfinder Society is because each class is treated a little bit differently. So what archetypes you can qualify for and how you interact with the rules is different for each one of the 4 classes. With Summoner, you can't play a non-Unchained Summoner unless you're grandfathered in. If you're already playing one that got to 2nd level, you can use the old rule set. But otherwise, all summoners have to use Unchained rule set. The other 3 can use, but don't have to use the ones. But they have a little bit of strange rules for like which archetypes can be applied. If like Monk can't have any archetypes from previous versions if you're playing Unchained in PFS.
That
Yeah.
makes sense, I think.
I think it makes enough sense just because of the way archetypes correspond with like class abilities at various levels, and
Yeah.
if they're
I mean,
changed,
Monk
those things
also
won't.
changed drastically too.
I guess I don't know how much most of them changed.
Barbarian and Rogue can take archetypes though in
Okay.
PFS. It's
So-
only Monk that can't.
Barbarians, their powers changed a little, their rage changed a bit, and that's about the extent of their changes. The monk has a
Massive.
4 base attack bonus now. Their flurry works differently. What else?
How
do
so?
they have?
Maybe we should talk about each one in turn.
Just to give like a high
Just a
high
little
level viewpoint here, there's a ton of optional rules in this book. The ones everyone knows about are the Unchained classes. 4 of them: Barbarian, Monk, Rogue, Summoner, and it's basically a different version of the class. And they mentioned that their goals with it was to kind of make complicated or difficult to use classes a little bit more like easier to play, and then also to deal with like power level balance.
Which is very
In-
obvious in the case of Rogue.
I guess I don't. It might be easier to like perceive these things when you're playing like Pathfinder Society, where you're seeing a lot of different people playing a lot of different games. At least in terms of power level, I've never really had a problem with any of these classes. Summoner being the exception because I've only been in a game with a summoner once, I think. But like I'm not really sure where all of these these complaints are coming from. I think I kind of get it, but like Monk could be a lot easier to use. But I understand how monks work because I am deeply entrenched in these rules. I feel like Barbarian could hardly be easier. I
think
really wonder what's
Barbarian's changes were mostly to make the class easier to play, actually. Like, I don't think it changed the power level of it all that much. It was mostly your rages are easier to calculate because they're changing less stats on the fly.
I have to disagree with you on that. I think Unchained Barbarian has gotten weaker.
Oh.
Like less powerful.
Less powerful, yeah.
You think that was by design?
No, I think that was an accidental byproduct of trying to make it a simpler to utilize class.
Like
But
a little less powerful or debilitatingly less powerful?
A little bit less powerful. And the reason why is because they don't give stat bonuses in their rage. They give bonuses to temporary hit points and to certain rolls. But those certain rolls aren't as comprehensive as these stat bonuses. So, for example, a Unchained Barbarian goes into Rage, doesn't get any bonus to break down a door.
Right.
Because that's not an attack roll. It's based off of a strength check. So the Rage is kind of it's not balanced in the sense that it doesn't work the way I think they want it to anymore.
Sure. The rage itself, even in Pathfinder Society, because they use a bunch of break checks, and I really like that. I keep catching myself because I'm like, oh, I'm first level, and I took a big hit to my stats because I'm not getting my +2 to my strength as I'm breaking down this door. And
so you go to rage, but it doesn't do what you think it should do.
It also doesn't give the bonus if you're two-handed weapon wielding, because it doesn't add the extra 1.
So that's a flat damage bonus?
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, one of the positives, a negative and positive, is they readjusted all the rage powers. Well, okay. First of all, there was a bunch of rage powers before, and they don't have those anymore. They have the ones that they added now.
Are rage powers good now? Because I can't remember ever looking at the list of rage powers and not yawning.
There are
Yeah,
some.
they
well,
are.
I
They're
always
really
hated
fun. I think
Rage
Some of them
powers are good. Like
Yeah.
even Unchained rage powers, there's a lot of really good rage powers.
Well, I'm saying that I thought that rage powers were almost uniformly too boring before.
Have you
There
looked
were a
at
couple of
any of
obvious
the
ones.
totem stuff?
I'm not sure what you mean.
There's a series of rage powers that
Yeah.
are like lesser, moderate, and greater. They go in strings, and then you can only invest in one of them. So it's like
Okay.
dragon totem, and then you have lesser, normal, and
Yeah.
greater.
Yeah.
And they make really interesting thematic characters that usually end up. Most of them are actually pretty powerful.
The barbarian archetypes did a hell of a lot to help out the barbarian rage powers. The initial ones were, I would say, somewhat underwhelming. The archetypes, and I don't remember the book. Something.
Okay.
Oh, I don't remember.
It sounds to me
Advanced-
kind of like
Advanced-
the temporary hit point change was good, but they maybe could kept the strength increase.
The
I don't
temporary hit point change was definitely good. I hated how it worked, how you would die if you stopped raging and you were at 10 hit points. It made absolutely no sense. You were expected to get a heal in between there. That was absolutely terrible. And that was one of my least favorite things about that. That and the rogue sneak attack, how that worked. But they changed that, and now it's temporary hit points, and they come off first, which is a very intelligent change, and I very much respect them for that. And the other thing that they changed with the rage powers is stances now take a move action to get into, but they're really powerful.
Okay.
Okay.
One of them gives you like a bonus to attacks. One of them gives you a bonus to like AC, and you get it during your entire rage. It just takes a move action to get into the stance, but you keep it for your entire rage. And the only problem with that is their competence bonuses. And we have a bard in the party, and I'm like, I'm not taking those.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's a little
Okay.
disappointing. Some of them are that was the attack and damage one, I think only. I think some of them might be morale bonuses.
Some of them
Sure.
are on type bonuses also.
Yes, some of them are on type bonuses, and they have some really cool ones. Which there's one that gives you like +8 to your strength to bend, break, or destroy, lift objects or stuff like that. That one's really cool. And I took one that I didn't get to use yet that allows you to charge through one ally as if they weren't there. And then there's a greater version of that where you can charge through any number of allies. As if
That's
they're not in
awesome.
front of you. Yes. I didn't get to use it, but whatever.
You will.
Yep.
We're always in everyone's way.
The one you're referring to is shove aside and greater shove aside.
Yeah.
Happily named. So I guess moving right along, there's the monk. One of the first things you'll notice about the monk is that it's a full BAB class.
And it no longer has high will saves,
That is
Yes.
true.
which has been one of the hallmarks of D20 monks is having all good saves.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
one of their standard things, and they just dropped. They don't have good will saves anymore.
They don't have
There's-
will saves, and they intended for compensation for that somehow.
Do they
with
still
the rest
rely
of the
on
class.
wisdom
Yes.
for anything?
Yes, for
They
armor
do,
class.
for AC.
If
Okay.
if I was looking at this correctly, I think they can take 3 attacks at first level, or something like that. Like you can
I
flurry
think
of
the
blows and spend
flurry
a
gives
key
you
to
an
get a
extra
second.
2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you get flurry of blows, which is the 2-weapon fighting thing, and then you can spend key to do things such as take extra attacks.
You essentially
But
get key
You don't get
powers
key
now
at
to
level
use
1,
your-
do you?
They changed it. Key is now your defining feature, but it starts at like 4th level.
Oh,
Third level.
okay.
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at the book and
You get it at 3rd level.
Oh, okay. So level 3. That's not so bad.
But I guess I wasn't key there before, and didn't it also do that thing?
Mhm.
You could take an extra attack. So that's
Yeah,
not
but-
that new.
No, but there's other abilities that you can use. It kind of works
And
like
there were
Rage
before.
Power now, where you could choose between them.
Okay,
Now you get to pick what they are.
I thought you
You
could
get-
before too.
like you pick a specific key power to use. I think each level, kind of like rage power.
I might be misremembering because I remember that that ninjas got key before also, and theirs works slightly differently in that they were basically taking half monk powers / half rogue talents.
I think
traditional monk did not get to choose their powers.
Okay.
They
all
just
preset for them.
They just got
set powers. And Unchained Monk picks one when at every other level, starting at 4th level. And it's kind of like rage powers. There's a fairly long list of things that they can pick from, or rogue talents or anything like that. And they'll never get them all. There's way too many for them to ever get even close to them all.
Right.
Sure.
So I guess I don't know if this is supposed to be a more powerful version of Monk, or what exactly they're doing. Seeing the full base attack makes the class more inviting to me, I guess. Like,
to compensate for I think the willpower decrease, they also added D10 hit points.
That's what the base attack. Remember the melee. Those are connected to the base attack point in Pathfinder. So if you have a full base attack bonus, you have a D10.
Yeah, but that's also, still a buff regardless.
Okay.
I think that's intended to help, which is probably why they took away the wisdom. But I think, or the
will
bonus, but I think paladins still get it.
Well, I think it's probably just one of those.
Paladins don't have 3 high saves.
Things.
They don't have high reflex.
They get that thing that they add their charisma bonus to save, so it always seems like they have intensely good saves.
Right.
Because they do.
Monks were the only class with all 3 high saves, and it was kind of to me at least, one of their defining features from the beginning of 3rd edition.
It's like the perfect mind, body, soul thing. Like
right, there's balance.
Yeah.
But they don't in this.
I'd be interested to see one in play, but
in general, they also a lot of the more kind of mystic aspects of monk seems to be decreased in this, for their martial aspects to be increased, is what the feel of it was to me. Yeah. Some of the monk powers are really good and really fun for that. I've been playing in a different Pathfinder Society game where someone's been playing an Unchained monk and does some really weird stuff. He gets to do a flying kick that allows him to move, and one of his attacks each round ignores damage reduction and hardness.
Oh.
Yeah, those are styles that you can add to your flurry, I think.
So he jumps around the battlefield without provoking a lot. Like, he can jump a long distance, and he can commonly get one good strike through that will ignore everything. So he's not the highest damage output in the party, but he can always deal damage.
So what about rogues? Are they significantly different?
Well,
they're
fairly.
They're straight up. They're better. Absolutely, they're better.
I mean, finesse training is the big thing.
Yes.
Finesse training.
It basically allows them to be like later editions of Dungeons and Dragons where they add dex to damage.
They get
dex to damage, and they get to use dex on their.
They get weapon finesse as a bonus feat at 1st level. At 3rd level, they can add damage to any weapon that they qualify weapon finesse for.
Okay.
Do you know if they read? I haven't looked at the rogue powers yet, but do you know if they redid them?
They did. They did, same as Barbarian. So you can only take rogue power. Like, they redid the rogue powers.
The big addition is the new. Oh gosh, what are they called? They're called skill unlocks.
Yeah, they have a whole new subsystem for skills.
Right.
Skill unlocks.
Yes.
And rogues automatically get it built into their thing that they get skill unlocks. In Pathfinder Society play, only rogues can use skill unlocks. No other classes are allowed to use this, even though it's a subsystem that is potentially open to any class. Yeah. But it's only because of the Unchained thing. And skill unlocks are 5, 10, 15, and 20 when you get that many ranks in a skill.
Okay.
They give you additional uses or benefits with the skill.
They reminded me a lot of that chart in the Epic Level Handbook, where it shows you different skill checks to be able to do ridiculous things.
At 70, you climb up the air.
One of them that I thought was particularly interesting was like the one for bluff. If you had 15 ranks of bluff, you basically get spell resistance versus like alignment detecting and mind reading, stuff like that. Because you're just that slippery, like, I don't know.
There was I think it was an insight one that if you know that combat's going to happen, you can make a sense motive check. and if you succeed at it, you get a bonus on your initiative because you know what's
Okay.
happening before other people do.
But rogues, they get the same, like, up to 10d6 sneak attack dice. They've got medium BAB. It all looks very similar. They've got lots of skills.
Yep.
Yeah, I was kind of curious just to see how similar they looked.
They're very similar. The differences are that they have free weapon finesse and improved weapon finesse, but they have this whole system of skill unlocks, making them much more a master of skills. And their trap finding, trap sense has been increased in usability to danger sense and applies to more things in general.
And their sneak attacks can be like, I think you can remove some sneak attacks to give them like negatives, like debilitating. And stuff like
debilitating, disorienting, hampered. You can add additional status effects onto your sneak attack dice.
I guess one thing I'd always over the years see a lot with Rogue is it's an extremely attractive class for newer players. Not to say older players don't like rogues, but like you'll get someone in there playing a rogue, and then you gotta explain you had to jump through these hoops to like get all your stuff going in rogue, and this you just kind of they set you on a track, and you at least get to add your stat to attack and damage. Whatever else happens, it's okay. It's nice.
They were a much more power gamey. You needed to know what you were doing or have a very good understanding of the class when you went into it.
Yeah.
For them to be, I think, really good to begin with, and even then, I'm not sure that they were particularly great.
So I think they're more powerful and more accessible.
Yeah.
And I guess, what's new with summoners?
Oh, boy.
I have never understood either version of Summoner.
I understood the new one. I think they took out a bunch of the junk from the Summoner is too strong, but I don't remember. I don't remember old Summoner at all to say.
Okay.
So
they tried to simplify it, and I haven't played Unchained Summoner, so I don't know exactly. I did play some previous Summoners, but when I talked to people in PFS, they said they tried to fix it and didn't.
Okay.
I heard that it was...
is what a lot of people have said about it that I talked to.
I heard that it was much worse. That's,
I mean,
I don't know.
I heard that it's not as good as it was before, but it's still broken.
Do you know if
possible?
the Eidolon ability is much different?
I thought they had said in there that they wanted to expand like your options for your Eidolons or have different types of them and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, that doesn't seem like it would particularly require or benefit from this kind of treatment.
Right.
I mean, like, they could have crammed Eidolon options into any book and not changed the class from the ground up. I guess, were they medium base attack bonus before? Because they are now. I thought that they were mage base attack bonus.
I don't know.
They're yeah, I mean,
I remember Ebo played that one summoner in my game, and he was outrageously powerful.
That was, and then I had to try to make another character that was even more powerful.
To be fair, I think every character in that game was outrageously powerful, but I don't know. All right, well, I guess, I'm looking at just a little bit at this description of summoners, and nothing about it seems particularly accessible to my hurried gaze, so I'm not really going to opine about it, which is convenient because it frees us up to talk about anything else.
So, I guess, speaking of anything else...
okay.
Oh, Ebo's got something.
Yeah, they changed the Eidolons now get, I think, subtypes, which you don't pick what they are. That it's predetermined what they get at different levels.
Okay.
So instead of you getting to pick 4 claws that are all fire-wielding claws, you can pick like an angel or a protean or a demon.
You pick a track, and you get stuff on that track. Yeah. Okay.
And I think in addition to other things.
So you end up with a real Eidolon and not a mutant.
You end up
Yeah.
with a real Eidolon with a few changes. You still do get to make some adjustments.
I always liked the
Yeah,
kind of
you get to
Pokemon
determine
aspect
how they look
where
You
you
get to
could kind
determine
of,
how they look. But
yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So what else is going on in this here
Oh,
book?
tons of options for skills.
they
A
also
lot
do
of this
that.
stuff reminded me of they're looking at newer editions of Dungeons and Dragons, like 4th edition, 5th edition, and even some other games like some of the stuff had some Eclipse Phase type interest in there.
Okay.
To start with that one, background skills reminded me a lot of Eclipse Phase. Basically, they take the skills and they say, here are, we're just going to level with you. Here are the good ones, and here's a category of the fluff ones. And you get like free points to put in the fluff skills.
I love it.
Here are the active skills
Bye,
you're going to
Barbarian.
use while you're adventuring, and here's the skills that you might want, but
I
you're not
see
going
it,
to really.
Nate. I disagree with some. Well, okay, yeah, I was gonna say the knowledge skills, but yeah, they got it right. Engineering is probably the least often rolled knowledge I've ever seen. Maybe
Engineering is
villain.
pretty not common. Nobility is pretty
Dungeoneering
not
has
common.
Dungeoneering has monster knowledge related benefits.
Nobility, I think, is rolled less than engineering, personally.
Yeah, well, it really depends.
Yeah.
If you're
Engineering is like for a very specific type of game. I guess nobility
Yeah.
is too, but it can come up more often.
Characters looking to get into a castle using some sort of a social solution, nobility will be his go-to skill for information. If he's using a mechanical solution, engineering might be more practical.
I was just thinking of PFS, and I have rolled more engineering checks than knowledge nobility checks in
Sure.
PFS.
As much
You're
as I
probably right.
hate knowledge local, somehow that is used more often.
Knowledge local has associated monster checks with it.
Yeah.
It's used all the time.
Yeah, boy, do I
By
hate
the
that
book.
one.
By the book, local is the monster knowledge check for humanoids.
Yeah, and there's a lot of humanoids
So-
generally.
And monsters humanoids also, right?
Nature was monsters humanoids last I checked, but then again,
Okay.
I
I
have
never
been
remember that one.
I have been showing signs of cross edition
Edition lag.
lately. Yes, I've been basically losing my memories and pushing editions together to my liking.
So they call these basically less important or less used skills background skills, and they don't stop you from putting your real points into them, but even if you do put all your points into the active skills, you still get bonus points every level to basically have a hobby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you get like two skill points for
just
level or
like
something
I think both Eclipse Phase and Shadowrun 5th Edition both do that, where they'll give you free points of knowledge skills because you would not take them otherwise.
Yeah, basically.
I think that's better than forcing you to spend X amount of points.
Eclipse Phase also does that, I think.
Here's 1,000
that's what
points.
Eclipse Phase
300 of them? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
What you mean is you have 700 points. 300, you just have 300 that you have to do this with.
Yeah.
I really found that condescending from the first edition or the first book of Eclipse Phase, that they're like, you have 1,000 free points. Not so fast.
So
It's like when you're growing up and you get your first job, and it's like, well, here you have $500, but wait, you don't have any of that.
consolidated skills is another option. That's a lot more like 4th or 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, where they
Sure.
basically take the skills and prune it down to a smaller amount of skills. It's
I'm
a
comfortable
system
with that in
that
most cases.
on the surface seems pretty simple, and to interact with the rest of the game it requires a few tweaks, but it actually looks pretty reasonable. Basically you get less skill points per level, and if you have like feats and stuff that give you bonuses to a skill, they basically give you bonuses to a specialized situation using the skill, so they're not actually more powerful.
I'm pretty into that. I'm eager to see how it works in 5th edition.
Yeah. Grouped skills is
I like
weird.
this. In
I'm sorry,
Pathfinder, I already think that the consolidated list, the before it doesn't. I like the number of skills in Pathfinder, so consolidating it more doesn't seem necessary to me.
I could definitely go for less. I thought that the skill list in 4th edition was a pretty well-rounded and adequate list. That included
I think
I can
diplomacy,
see-
bluff, intimidate are different skills, and that being good at different aspects like that is very good. I think that sense, motive, and perception are different skills and should be used differently. So,
I guess fourth
I
edition
like-
had them in different categories. Had sense, motive, and perception in
Right,
different
but
categories.
I like being good at, say, knowing about arcane stuff and not necessarily be knowing about engineering. I like having diverse knowledge sets. I like having acrobatics and climb be different. Swim, athletics. I don't like the athletics category. I think it's too consolidated at some point.
I'm growing very attached to the idea that moving into the future, we can have this kind of fully buying into 3.5 and moving forward Pathfinder game, and this kind of back to the roots, more simplified Dungeons and Dragons game. So I kind of do like the Pathfinder skills, having lots of them,
But remember,
just because I
Pathfinder also has
associate it with
fewer skills
Pathfinder.
than 3.5. It already consolidated the 3.5 skill list.
A couple of them.
Some,
Not all.
Some.
They
No,
also
but it-
randomly
There are a
added
few.
fly. Why did they do that? Why?
I don't. It's just like
They
That's
needed another athletics type skill for that form of movement.
Huh.
They
They
really
didn't need a
wanted to
skill
make
for that.
fly a thing,
That-
and we don't use it.
Okay,
that's
here's the thing.
some-
If you're climbing and someone tries to knock you down, or if you're trying to move like with that, you make a climb check. Acrobatics is for land-based movement. Swim is for water-based movement. If you're in the air and you're trying to do something, what do you roll? It was actually an issue because none of the skills really fit it.
I don't
Yes,
really.
It's a skill that you don't use very often because most
Yeah.
people aren't flying, but it is still an
Yeah.
important movement
I don't
locomotion
think
skill.
That's the
that
problem,
important.
because
No,
people,
I don't agree.
It's not so much for player characters as my mindset for it. It is for GM and monster statistics, so that the GM has a set of rules to arbitrate what happens to the griffin when you try to knock it down when it's flying.
Yeah, but they had that before.
They didn't.
I hate the.
They didn't have a good system for how to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that the system was pretty much a binary. Like either you're successfully flying or not. If an effect knocked you down, you fell.
I'm just trying to think of a griffin that doesn't take any points in that. He's just like terrible at flying.
Well, it's just like I feel like when you're swimming, I think that is a situation where there's like some factors that you can add or take away. Swimming has never been a powerful state for a player character.
Like, there's no clumsy swimming. There's no.
If you're making a swim check, that's like a death save. You don't want to be making a swim
If
check.
you're making a swim check, you're making a full round action that you're disappointed with whether you succeed or not. if you want to be good underwater, you're getting a swim speed, and then you don't need to worry about it anymore.
Except for you do. There are
You don't.
no, you do. There are times you make a swim.
There
check.
are times that a swim check is called for, but you don't ever do it. You don't need it.
Okay.
I don't.
You haven't played as many modules as I have in this, I think, because you do make in published things. You do make these checks. They are written into the scenarios sometimes.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I'd have to take a rank
the
and
problem,
swim. I don't want to.
because they use it doesn't mean that it's useful.
Okay, I think that
It
I
depends
think
on the style of game you want to play.
Yeah.
I think that a fly modifier, it might be useful if you wanted to make a system based around flying creatures making the roll instead of making some sort of a saving throw or else just falling out of the sky. I think that having a skill that a player character might want to take ranks in, but they cannot use at level 1 is stupid. I thought it was stupid with Scry, if you remember Scry. I think it's stupid with Fly. I think that it's one of those condescending things
They're
that
troll now that you say it.
a wizard takes ranks in because they think that they're obliged to, because they assume they'll reach fifth level before they die or the game ends.
I mean, just
And they
also
don't.
remember that most spells that give you a fly speed give you a bonus on fly checks equal to the cast level of the spell. So even if you don't have ranks in the skill, you still have ranks in the skill effectively.
Yeah, so hey, let's make it more useful.
I'm going to
more
take
useful.
responsibility for derailing this into a debate about fly.
Terrible.
Because I did.
As bad as engineering.
But I don't think there's anything about fly in the book. They do mention stuff about grouped skills, though, which is a really strange and awkward system
Cool.
that I don't think makes anything simpler. Like, I think it was meant to... the intent was to make it a little simpler to spend your points but reading about it, it seems really complicated. Basically, there's these like 5 or 6 skill groups, and if you're a really skilled character, you might eventually get like 5 of them. But you basically get a skill group, and then based on I think your intelligence and your level, you get specializations. And if you have one or the other, your bonus is like half your level, and if you have both, it's your full level, and that's it.
Okay. So it's not exactly like Shadowrun skill groups.
No, it's basically we don't want to consolidate the skills, but we don't want to make you manage points. And I don't know.
I'm really comfortable not talking very much about this because I definitely don't like it.
My reaction to that was kind of a meh, and that's kind of the point of the book is that they bring out a bunch of like options and stuff, knowing that a lot of people are going to dislike a number of them. But maybe I don't know. Maybe there's some
Yeah.
to that.
I guess I don't know.
I guess before we get to like skill unlocks, which is like kind of the more important one, there was some expanded uses for like craft and profession. They gave a ton of sample DCs for various things you can do with your craft and profession checks, in addition to a whole new system for creating things with craft that still boils down to making a check like every day to see how much GP worth the thing you make. So I don't understand why there's a new system that does what I think is the exact same thing, but maybe it's better in some way if you have like the intimate knowledge about crafting, and maybe it's better. I don't know. But
I
It
heard a
looks
lot of
like
complaints about that.
a slightly different way to do the exact same thing.
it
is what
wasn't different enough to appeal to me. Like if I could be like, how about what can I make in a month and with one roll? Like then I'd be like, oh neat, that's cool. But anyway.
Yeah, I guess I've never liked the crafting non-magical items system. I mean,
Yeah.
even though Pathfinder added like making a roll to enchant magical items, it's a roll that you can game sort of like such that you can make it to your liking. You make an item that you know you can make. You don't make an item that you might not be able to do well.
Yeah.
Whereas with the crafting of mundane items, it's always sort of been like, you might just not do very well. And it might take you a long time or cost you a lot of money. And it's just like, why is this any different than the way magic items works? Where I just like make a roll and have the thing that I want.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess the last thing they had in there for skills we talked a bit about already on skill unlocks. I guess what Roy was saying, PFS, it's like a rogue only thing, but they have like a feat in here that you can take. Basically, any character can take a feat to get skill unlocks for a skill, and it's basically a feat that at higher levels gives you 4 feats. I mean,
What PFS actually says is the skill unlocks and signature skill feats are only available for the Rogue Edge class ability.
sure.
Okay.
So I don't know. I would probably allow the feat in like a normal game because they seem pretty cool. They're a little powerful, but I mean, I don't know. It's Pathfinder. Why
You're a
not?
little powerful, but you are at level 15 when you start getting the really rock'em sock'em.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, most of the rank 5 ones are like, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're no longer denied your dex bonus while climbing. Hey, that's got its uses.
Yeah.
It certainly incentivizes you to get on that rope. Yeah, I guess some of them look pretty cool. It would take a while to go through all of these, but just like,
Yeah, they have one for fly.
Good.
is it good?
Do you like
Your signature skill is fly? When you have 5 ranks of fly, you know what you might have? Learned the spell fly if you are a wizard.
and then you can make a DC 20 fly check to make a 45-degree turn.
So it's like they have a skill now that governs what used to be just a stealthifyingly complex chart of degrees of movement based on your maneuverability. Now you just make a check and
Yeah.
That's it.
So moving on, a lot of stuff in this book. They have
let's
alternate
talk about fly
rules.
some more.
They have alternate rules for multi-classing. The one that kind of stood out to me, it doesn't simplify things at all, is they had basically partial advancement for your base attack bonus and saves. So you
Yeah.
don't have to like game out when you take your next level of something. Like if you have basically if you're playing like, let's say you're playing a cleric and a rogue, if you take the dead base attack level in both of them, that'll eventually add up to a base attack bonus. So basically you compute the fractions and add everything up for your base attack bonus and base saves. The book offers a bunch of charts, I guess, for this, but I mean it's exactly what you think it is. It's just the math.
Yeah, I thought you chose one at each level, but that's probably not correct.
Oh, yeah, there was also yeah, it wasn't multi-classing.
that's for
but there was
staggered.
a staggered
Sorry.
advancement thing in there. No, you're right. Where basically, if you wanted a more granular way of leveling up, so like if 20 levels isn't really suiting your needs, like maybe you're gonna play in that slow advancement that they have, and so you're not gonna level up very often. Basically, in like 3 increments before you get your final level, you can get some of the basic things from the next level.
Oh.
So like you can,
Is
yeah.
that the way that 13th Age does it, pretty much? Exactly?
I don't know.
There's no, I don't, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there's like experience points in that game in the traditional sense, but it's like each session you get like a slice of your next level up, and then once you've gotten, I think you can kind of customize it so that it's like every like 3 to 5 sessions you'll get one thing each time, and then just the bump to your full level.
Yeah. And
Or
this
it might
one,
even be fewer sessions than that.
they gate all your class features behind the actual level up. So the stuff that you get early is only like a taste. Like you might be able to get a save bonus, a base attack bonus, or I think like some of the hit points.
Hit points, yep. And every 50% you get your skill points, half your skill points.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all right. I don't know.
It's interesting, but at the same time, I don't know. You get stuff more often. It's pretty cool. If you can't wait like the 3 sessions. But I'm used to it now.
Well, we also have not been playing hardly any slow-moving, slow-leveling games.
That's true. We go pretty hard.
Yeah.
Hard in the paint.
Yeah, so what else is in here?
Variant multiclassing is a sticky thing. I'm not sure how I felt about it. Basically, instead of multiclassing by taking a level of each class, you go your full 20 levels in your class, and you get half as many feats. In exchange for getting, this is kind of like 4th ed, in exchange for getting half as many feats, you get abilities here and there from a secondary class that you choose.
Okay.
You're
Do they
basically
choose
creating
the abilities?
No, it's set for each of the classes. What
That's
abilities
what
you
I
get.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Paizo has the abilities listed.
It is, yeah. So you get the 5 abilities they picked from the class as iconic.
Yeah.
And you get those starting at 3rd level. Every other time you get a feat, giving up 5 of your feats for those 5 abilities.
You just get
that
levels
sounds
up
prickly.
to your familiar and for wizard. That's not true. It's making it up, but I really wish you guys.
That sounds almost like the inverse of D&D 5th edition multiclassing, where you basically get the chart. It goes pretty much normally depending on which classes you choose, and you only get basically the class abilities for each level that you have.
I think this was to combat one of the few scenarios that they haven't done anything with so far. I mean, we have the hybrid classes that just mash as much as they can together, and they made the entire class. And then we've got normal multi-classing. We have alternate classes that work similar. We've got archetypes that kind of blend everything, prestige classes. And this is really all that's left, I think, which was their kind of...
Like, what if I want to splash a little, but I don't want to fall behind?
This reminded me of Gestalt.
Kind of, yeah.
where it's not broken, it's just different.
Yeah.
Because they're choosing the abilities you get, and it's just basically, oh, you're doing this, and you get some of this as well. And it just seems so unnecessary to me.
It's like I've only lately actually read any of the 5th edition Player's Handbook, but it seems kind of like the multi-classing in that is pretty much like, listen, we've given you an option for multi-classing, and it's fine. But if you stick your foot in here, you might twist your ankle if you're not watching where you step, because this is not necessarily for beginners. Whereas I sort of
dare try to multi-class with Warlock. That's what 5th edition tells you.
You know what, I'm pretty sure you're right, because I have always skipped over every clause or paragraph where they talk about warlocks in that whole chapter. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not trying to draw everything back there, but basically it's sort of been lately on my mind, just like, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be ahead of time. It certainly looks usable, a lot like this, but at the same time, it's just like, listen, if you just do this, just like regular Pathfinder multi-classing, you might not like what you wind up with.
I also think, like, what you meant about drawing things back to, like, later editions of D&D, like, I think that is a valid comparison for this book in particular, because so much of the stuff that they added reminds me of stuff from 4th ed or 5th ed, and I wonder if they're kind of trying to, infuse Pathfinder with a little bit of that potential.
Did any of you play a multi-class character in 4th edition ever that you can recall?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember being like, I just get to pick a power from this class instead?
I mean, I remember it basically felt like...
You had to come up with some sort of chintzy at-will power that really affected you in a weird mechanical way for it to be effective.
Basically, yeah. It always seemed like they wanted it to be an option for people who wanted it, because there are people who very fondly remember multi-classing in previous editions, and with a lot of success. But it always felt like the least of all of the options presented. Like, even the best multi-class combination in 4th edition always seemed like kind of like a consolation prize.
Yeah.
Where the stuff that your class got was supposed to be better, and so it was.
Yeah.
But, that's just my opinion, man. Is that all of the multi-class stuff? Or...
Yeah, they didn't do much else with it.
Okay.
They already, like Ibo was saying, they already have a lot of ways of multi-classing Pathfinder.
Yes.
They already have a lot of ways to mix things together for that. So they didn't need to do anything for it at all.
It's like they took every, like, character customization option that 3rd edition and 3.5 had, and then they just sort of let those be. They didn't really add a lot. They had one book, I guess, of prestige classes, but not really many, which was kind of 3.5's bread and butter. Was like, we need more character options. Let's introduce a dozen or so prestige classes in each book. And then they added archetypes, which I'm not sure weren't in 3rd edition. I'm almost positive there was something like it.
No.
They had alternate class features.
Sure, that's the same thing.
It's basically the same thing. They just didn't call them archetypes.
I feel like if you find the right archetype, you can accomplish splashing a little bit of another class into your class.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for most cases, that's true. Like, you'll have a hard time coming up with an archetype for, like, a fighter that makes you into, like, a fighter/mage.
Yeah.
But then play a Magus.
I heard that. I heard that
Yeah.
the Brawler is actually better than the Unchained Monk still, but that's...
It is. Yeah, Brawler is a very, very good class.
But, like, they basically have enough core/base classes. Archetypes aplenty for all of them. You can, Pathfinder still has that same multi-classing sort of system where, if you just need a little bit of something, you can take it. Or if you want to go 50-50 on something, you can make that character work depending on what you are. But, yeah, it's like, I'm not going to say there's too many options. I'm just saying, like, it's too many vectors of options for me at this point. It's like, if it were just one axis where the options were coming off of, I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. But now it's like, oof. I don't know.
Well, we're getting on pretty close to wrapping up here. I guess one last topic, and we can finish talking about this on another day. That
Sure.
one last thing that I saw in there that I really liked was the alignment stuff that they had, and this is more of a story
Okay.
type thing. But basically, they had an option for this sort of fluid alignment, where you put yourself on this track, where it's like the good evil track, the law chaos track, and based on your actions in game and your decisions you make in the various encounters that you have, you can move up or down that track. And I guess one of the things that eventually is supposed to happen is that once you kind of solidify how you're playing your character, at the end of one of these, I don't remember what they called them, like alignment tests or alignment challenges, basically. Like at the end of one of these things, if you remained exactly the same, so like if you're playing your alignment basically perfectly, you would get like a Benny. I think they called them affirmations. And
Hmm.
so based on what alignment you portrayed correctly, you would get like you could spend that for like a small
Oh,
bonus like later on a roll.
I like
Like,
that.
Yeah,
is
I
it a
thought that was kind of
bonus?
neat.
Okay, so it's like a free bonus. It's not like a bonus based on the alignment that you are. Like you get to kill one free person as neutral evil or something like that.
I like that.
I'm just wondering.
I
That's
also
how
like
smooth it
the
is.
shifting scale, so it's like you could have a lawful good paladin who is at like all the way. There's like 3 levels, so they're totally lawful. They break a law and they fall down one, but they don't necessarily lose their paladin yet. So they can see themselves
Okay.
heading in that direction that they shouldn't be going. And so I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the alignment stuff has a lot of. There's a lot of places you can go with alignment that would be better than what D&D historically and Pathfinder currently have been doing with it.
It's kind of one of those like role-playing tropes at this point. Like,
Yeah.
It is one of the oldest subsystems in D&D at this point. If you look at the cross of alignment of neutral and law to chaos and evil to good, you're looking at one of the oldest kind of subsystems.
Yeah.
It
I
from way back in first ed.
I recently heard somebody who claims not to be a gamer use the phrase chaotic neutral in a conversation to describe somebody who is, just kind of doing whatever they wanted. Um, but yeah, so it is kind of, it's always been there, and it's always had a purpose. Like, you know,
yeah.
the mechanics, at least in Pathfinder, have as it has developed, they depend on it.
Hmm.
You need something there. I like the idea of a rubric to track like the shifting of an alignment, because that was kind of one of the things that I didn't really cement my character's alignment in your recently concluded Pathfinder game, just because I didn't sort of have a space for it on my digital character sheet that I had been using. And so it kind of like eventually I had to sort of decide what he was based on, how he had been acting. And it's I would like to have a tool where it's just like, I have
Yeah.
done some maybe I have done some pretty chaotic things. Maybe I am gonna have to fight to be lawful if I want to be. It's
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
there's not much that there's a lot the game does kind of later and I guess earlier maybe too, but there's not much that you do on your own to that really besides role playing that affects your alignment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like an alignment change previously, at least, would basically just be like saying to the GM, I want to start playing. I've been playing my character pretty lawful neutral and not lawful good, so I'm going to start shifting toward lawful neutral. Can I do that? And they'll say, yeah, sure. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, in a few sessions, we'll see how you've been acting and blah, 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 or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's almost, it seems like there's usually a reason. Like, I want to be this alignment so that I will qualify for a prestige class or not be affected by this spell that has always been punishing me because I'm not acting good.
Well, and I think we've had a lot of just someone puts down an alignment at character creation, and then they play their character consistently, and if it's wrong, they just never worry about it.
Yeah, that's what I did with my
And
last character and a few recent characters.
And so it's not at that point. It's not like they're playing their character wrong. It's just the alignment written on the sheet isn't really representing it.
Sure. That's always been a thing, like with the World of Darkness games too, and even in the old World of Darkness when you had nature and demeanor, where it's just like, hey, why don't you pick 2 words from a kind of a weird and sort of incomplete seeming list, and those are going to determine the course of the game. And one of them, we're not going to quite, you're never going to quite understand what its purpose is, but just pick the right one for the other thing. Just pick Survivor. You'll use it. You'll get your willpower back.
Yeah, I liked actually those when I got to pick them, but it was like, boy, there are some times where I was like, I don't like any of these.
Well, and not for nothing, I think the new editions of the New World of Darkness games are doing a better job of integrating all of those, character personality types into the mechanics, and also, working with what they mean during play, as opposed to just having you pick a thing at character creation and occasionally get a benefit if you picked right, or get penalized if you picked wrong.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we should wrap it up here. We will continue this discussion on another day, and we will finish up talking about this book. This is a massive book. If you get a chance to check it out or find it on, I think it's probably up on Drive-Thru by now. It's been out for like a couple months or so. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it was a few months ago.
So, yeah, anyhow, this is the House Rule Podcast. You can find us at houserule.com. Check out some articles. We've also got a bunch of live streams going on there we're just started up a D&D 5th edition game, and we've been playing a ton of Pathfinder Society. You can find that PFS right on the front page. And so, yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.